Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. Today I'm thrilled to welcome 2010 World Team member, elite gymnast, UCLA alumni, fan favorite, Mattie Larson. Mattie Larson, welcome to the skating lesson.
Thank you.
So I was chatting with Miss Val recently and I was asking her how you were doing. We had done a live show together. And I was so curious because I had been rewatching some things and rewatching your old gymnastics recently. So I think everyone was so struck by your testimony at the Larry Nassar sentencing hearing because you were able to articulate things about the ranch, gymnastics, USA Gymnastics, so much deeper and with so much more tangible emotions than many other people who were there. So, first of all, how are you doing? Where are you? Give us your quarantine update.
Yeah, I'm doing well given the circumstances of like the world right now, and I'm in my house with my roommate in her room. And I mean, we're all fine. My family's pretty close, like all within like 20 miles of each other. Everyone's healthy for now, and doing well given what's going on.
Yeah. So, what's your life update? What are you doing? Are you working? Like, what have you been up to?
Yeah, so very random, but I did just start working at a new job, and it's something that like I never really thought I would be interested in, but I'm a dental assistant right now,
Okay.
and I'm only doing emergencies during quarantine. And then I'm also doing like voiceover work.
Okay.
But that's been a little bit hard because I was going into the studio and now I need to try to like set up a home thing and so things are kind of like up in the air, but yeah, like working here and there and it's fun.
Yeah. So, you mentioned voiceovers. So, I wanted to kind of get your whole career and how you got into this because you're from a family of performers. Your mom is an actress,
Uh-huh.
and and I was reading her bio even last night. I knew that she was in Ghost, but I read that she was in an episode of Boy Meets World that I then wanted to
Yeah,
go.
and which is funny because yeah, she did like movies and she did a lot of Broadway and stuff. But I remember when I was like growing up and watching Boy Meets World, that's like the only thing I cared about. And I'd like tell my friends in like third grade, like my mom was on Boy Meets World.
So who was she in Ghost? Can you like explain this? Was she in the scene with Whoopi when they're at like fortune tellers or
Yeah,
is
so she's one of Whoopi's sisters. Like Whoopi has two sisters in the movie,
okay.
and my mom is one of them. So she's in like multiple scenes, and yeah, she's in like Curly Sue. I think these are movies that were in like
This
mid
is when
late
I was a
90s.
kid, Maddie. This is like
Right.
older than you. Okay, before your
Okay,
time.
Curly Sue, Ed TV, like it was like in like that
Yeah.
generation. Yeah, and then my dad was an actor too. He did more commercials, but that's how they met, like in class in LA when they first moved to LA in the 80s.
And your
And yeah.
so your dad did voiceovers too, right? Or is
Yeah.
voiceovers for commercials? Or okay.
Yeah, no, my dad was like an actor, and he did some TV stuff, but mostly commercials, and then he did some voiceover stuff for World of Warcraft
Okay.
when I was younger.
It's probably very
And I
exciting to
remember,
many people. I mean, I never played it, but I
I never
know that it's
did either, but I'll tell some people, and they're like, and I just thought it sounded like really fun hearing him doing it at home and recording stuff. And I always like got like a little bit of flack for like having like a baby voice or a high voice or I was like, why not use it to my advantage and like try to play kids on stuff. And so it's been really fun.
and wasn't your sister in a show or something that she was on a reality show or something back?
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
my gosh, how do you know this?
Your mom,
Yes,
I met your mom once. I was just telling you at a US Classic, and we went down the whole rundown of.
I love it.
I was sitting with your mom, Miss Val, and Brent Shapiro. I'll remember. It was a
Yeah,
tale.
the
Yes.
chatty Cathy's.
You know what? Else is there to do in Kellogg, Michigan? We
Right.
went
And
to
probably drink and rant and rant.
yes. So
Yeah, my sister was on this reality show on BET called Baldwin Hills.
okay.
And it's kind of like the hills or like Laguna Beach, but for like the black part of like LA.
Okay.
And it's not a great show. But it was really funny. It was like the first time she ever got drunk. Like they recorded at her prom, and like we all watched it as a family, and it was really scarring for her. So it was a funny experience.
So how did you not wind up being in commercials as a young kid? Because you have a lot of charisma. It comes across when you're performing, when you're speaking. So did they just think that they're going to do something really healthy and put you in elite gymnastics instead of being a child? Okay.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, let's just do competitive gymnastics. That's like way better than showbiz. But I think my mom said that she wanted to wait until we were like old enough to like decide for ourselves if we wanted to go into acting or not. Even though, God forbid, like I love my mom, but she did become like a stage mom of gymnastics, you know? So it's like the same thing. But so I actually did try to do acting a few years ago, and I don't know. I just didn't really think it was for me. I think I like being in front of a camera when I want to be, but I don't think I could like make it my job.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just wasn't for me. But
I could see you voice acting like a good Nickelodeon show, like a Hey Arnold. You know, you could.
Yes, I loved Hey Arnold.
Okay.
Yeah, I've only done a few like auditions, and the one thing I did was for like a raid like ant spray, and I had to like play an ant. And that was like the one thing I think I was like, okay, this is like kind of up my alley.
So what was your character like as an ant? Like, what are you channeling?
Like, scream a lot. I don't even know who I was channeling. I guess I was like channeling myself when I just had like a lot of coffee and like just like trying to sound like I was like 6 years old. And we had to be like, right,
So how did you start in gymnastics? Where did you start? How did you start? Walk us through this.
My mom put my sister in gymnastics when she was like 6 because she went to like a birthday party at like a junior gym kind of thing. And she noticed that she was like falling a lot. And so she was like, she didn't really have any upper body strength according to my mom. So she put her in. And I was 2 at the time, and I was like really fussy and like wanting to like get out there and be with her and the kids. And the teacher was like, it's fine. You can just let her roll around on the mats. Like, she doesn't have to join the class. It seems like she wants to like join in. And so I did. And I just like loved it. And she couldn't get me out of the gym. And I ended up after like a few months, like taking the same classes with the 6-year-olds when I was like 2 or 3.
And do you remember what gym this was?
No, it was a gym. I think it was Santa Monica, like gymnastics that like doesn't really exist anymore, like a gym for like little kids. And then I went to Broadway Gymnastics, which is still around in LA. And then from there, I started working with my coach, Galena.
Okay.
Who created, the gym burnt down in some mysterious fire when I was like 6. Weird. Never found out what happened.
They rebuilt it.
Yeah. And so Galena was coaching like a group of girls, and she was like, I think I'm going to create my own gym. So if her wants to come with me, we're going to make a gym. And it started with like 12 girls, and I was one of them. And then I was there from the time I was like 6 or 7 until I was 19.
So this is Galina Marinova. She was a Bulgarian gymnast in the 1980s. So what was Galina like early on?
She always scared me.
Okay.
From day one, she scared me. But she was very adamant about like, you can go somewhere, like you can be somebody. And I don't think I had a coach that was that seriously like telling me that. Because I was like really young, and I think they like wanted to keep it like light and fun. But you know, she's Bulgarian hardcore, and she would call me Matilda because she's like, Mattie's not a champion name, Matilda is. You can be champion. I was like, okay.
No, you talked about a group of 12 people. Like, at what point did you meet Sammy Shapiro and Hallie Mozette?
She was like one of like the ones at the beginning. Yeah. She started, I think, within like the first year of it opening.
Okay.
So we were training together from the time, she was 6 and I was 7 up until we went to college.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if there's like anyone else. Hallie Mozette, she was an elite gymnast too. She came like within like 2 years of it opening. So yeah, it just started from this little thing and then became like an actual program.
So, and did you love it early on, or did you like?
I loved gymnastics. Like, my parents could not stop me from doing it at home. My dad like built me a beam one year for Christmas. I would like give myself blisters, like learning stuff on the beam. But I would say when I was about in like third or fourth grade, that's when I started leaving school early and missing field trips. And I think at that point I started like realizing like I like it and I'm good at it, but I think it's like becoming a job right now. And I
Well,
didn't love that.
I was rewatching some footage of you last night, mentally preparing, and there was a profile on the news of you in 2008, and you said that you don't mind missing school or missing any, extracurricular activities because all of your good friends are at the gym anyway. So, how do you learn to give these interviews in gymnastics? Someone was
It's
explaining to
really
me this.
sad.
It's survival, they were saying. Like, you just learn instinctively what to say.
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever sat me down and was like, you have to say this. But I think I just knew like this is what good gymnasts say and this is what I need to say. And I think I remember watching that interview. I was like, yeah, it was before the Olympic trials.
Yeah, before the selection camp, you look really
And
excited.
it's like yeah, it's just like Little Miss Robot. Like, I love it. Everything's great. And it's like it wasn't, but it's just implicitly learned, I guess.
Yeah. So were you successful early on, I guess, coming through the ranks, or were you a good competitor early on?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that kept me like pushing me forward. I just really liked winning, and I got like addicted to winning. And it started when I was, I think, like level 5, and then I was like level 5, 6, 7, 8 state champion, and then I skipped level 9, and level 10 I was state, regional, national champion. Like it was just like coming in easy. Like if I knew in my head, like if I don't fall, then I'll win, and that was like kind of a good feeling for me. And then I went to elite, and I was like, oh, like this is a whole different ball game.
So I have a lot of questions about the training because everyone loved the AOGC gymnasts, and I think it's hard now because we learned that maybe the coaches weren't the nicest or the best, and they were a little bit problematic. But you guys kind of looked like the old Russian gymnasts, and you all looked like you had these beautiful lines. You had a lot of attitude when you were performing your floor routines, and you looked like you were enjoying it, and you all had like gorgeous technique. So I guess how did that all develop? Were you doing a lot of ballet training? Kind of talk us through that.
Yeah, we would do ballet every Saturday for like as long as I can remember. And sometimes Galena would teach us, but then later on she brought in an actual like ballet coach. Usually they would be like Russian.
Like a Russian smoker who's like still at her competition weight at age
Yeah.
60? Okay.
Well, it was like a guy, Russian smoker.
Okay.
But and then we would do I don't know, just from like early on, like I guess like not pointing my toes or like straightening my legs or having the right fingers, it just like wasn't an option. Like it was just I learned from like such a young age, like working with Galena. I didn't even like really like think about it at a certain point. Maybe once I was like 10 or 11, and I don't know, maybe it was like scaring us into it, but it just became like a natural thing. Galena like liked us to be creative with dance. Sometimes on like if she was in a good mood, she would just play floor music that wasn't ours and say, "Go make up a routine," and we could just dance around to like not our music and just do whatever we wanted. And I loved those days.
Okay. How often was Galena in a good mood early on?
I mean, she was in a better mood more often before like Arthur came around.
Okay.
And Arthur came around in God, I must have been like 11 or something when he was like consistently around and became a co-owner of the gym. And then I think they just like fed off of each other's negative energy a lot.
Okay. So he was known for being a great technician, was the word. He was involved with USA Gymnastics as a national staff member, I think, in the 90s.
Yeah,
So
with bars, he was the bars guy. He was the bars coach, like national staff
how
member.
good was he on bars? Because I was rewatching last night, and I feel like your routine, you had a beautiful line on bars, but your routines were not built to the code of points. Like you could have done different combinations and earned more points and things like that. So, and had an easier time of making like world and Olympic teams. So how good is he as like
Bars was not my thing. Like
Okay.
I was bad at bars. Bars was like a weakness for me until I don't know, 2010, where it's like, yes, bars, like technically I wasn't getting, as much as I could, but I think I still got like fourth or something.
Hmm.
And I remember being like almost as proud of that as I was like getting first on floor, because I just knew like for so long, like growing up, I was just bad at bars. So I think he helped me a lot. Sammy Shapiro was just like a bars natural.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think I also got like really nervous, and in the gym I could do like harder combinations, and then when I would compete, I'd kind of like freak out, and he would like water it down for me.
Did you do packs? Because I feel like you have this long line, these long legs that go on forever. Could you just
I
like,
start I started doing packs like my last year of competing or of like training. After Worlds, before I went to UCLA, when I wasn't really competing, I was like learning all these cool things. I had like actually a really cool routine. Um, I was starting on like the inside between the low and the high bar, and then I would do hop, like front stalter, like full, so like blind, and then half, and then immediate shaposh, swing, pack,
okay.
kip, cast. That was a straddle shaposh. Then I do toe shaposh, kip, cast, stalter full to Hindorf to bail to like stalter up to the high bar to Kachev dismount. So it was like getting like a pretty hard routine, but I never competed it.
Okay. Now, I guess, was floor always your favorite?
Yeah, I would say floor is my favorite. I just loved it. I loved dancing. I did dance before I started, like before gymnastics took over my life. I was kind of doing both at the same time.
Like what kind of
And
dance? Like Abby Lee, like competitive dance? Like the kind of thing.
no, it was like it was a place called Lula Washington Dance Academy, and it was just like a lot of like hip hop and African dance and some like jazz.
Okay. It's going to prepare you well for your UCLA days. So, uh, so I get, is that where I always remember like you did this thing with your hand in 2008 where you were like,
Yeah, whipping, like, yes.
yes.
I remember also like watching that footage, and then like Alicia Sacramone was like kind of like snickering like in the background, like laughing, just because I was just like so like oh no. And I just, I was like a good little girl, but I remember like being on floor and like an alter ego would come about.
So I have to ask, is that one of the tales of gymnastics? Now we know that gymnasts are not allowed to eat a lot, right? And we know that especially when you're elites, skating, ballet, the same kind of problems. But there was always this thing that there was like an AOGC diet. And is this true? Like, did they have some crazy restrictive diet that screwed
There
up
was
everyone's
no
routine?
specific diet
Okay.
like that they'd like give us like a list and we'd follow, but we were given really weird advice. Like Galena straight up told me, just suck on a lemon before you compete. That's it, because that's what I did, and I was good. So just suck on a lemon. Or like we weren't really like allowed to like eat during practice, and we'd have like a 7 hour practice, and we'd like hide in the bathrooms or in the locker rooms and eat. Like it was just very, very strange. So my thing was I wouldn't eat all day, and I did this for years. And I started taking laxatives, and I feel like I was gonna shit my pants every single practice.
Yes.
Sometimes I would even be a little like afraid to like drink too much water, and then I'd go home and have like 3 meals worth of food in like one sitting, and I just did that for years.
But like,
And
I have a sensitive stomach. So how are you doing
you can imagine
laxatives?
flipping in a leotard.
Yes! You're not like
My
worried
abs
about the
were probably the
situation?
strongest muscles in my body. Like honestly, because they're always like,
And like
um,
people are spotting you and grabbing you. Like you're never.
I know. It just became. It was just. I just dealt with it, and it was just the way it was, and
I
It
mean,
makes me
Galina's eating
sad.
lemons, so she's
Sad.
probably saying this is normal and that this is great. This is, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember like some my weight would yo-yo sometimes, and sometimes I'd lose a lot of weight and sometimes I'd gain, and when I'd lose a lot of weight I would like barely get through a routine and kind of like see stars. But I remember Galena and Arthur would pull me aside and be like, you look great, like keep it up, because it like even though it looked like I was probably gonna pass out. And it just makes me sad because I think like, yeah, I think I was like a good gymnast, but I mean, I mean, I don't even know how much better I could have been if I was just fueling myself properly and not feeling like I was like on the verge of like passing out every single day.
So at what point did you realize that your coaches were problematic? Like, did you know at like 14 that they're nuts and that like is this like a
Yeah,
family discussion or is it
yeah. I knew, and I think we would talk about it, like me and like my teammates. Like sometimes we'd cry about it, sometimes we'd laugh about it. But it was known, and I think that it was just like I didn't really know any other way. Like I had been with Galena since I was like 6, and Arthur since I was like 11 or 12, and I was just like, well, it's temporary. If you want to be a good gymnast, you have to go through crazy coaches, and then one day it's over. But you just have to get through it now.
also
And I
you
think
were at the ranch, so it's not like there were a lot of good options, right? Like what
right.
these people are birds of a feather, right? Like they
Yeah, it's not like I was like looking around at the ranch and being like, oh, like if only I could be with so and so. It's like, they were all a little.
so I at what point did you start going to the ranch? You were in the tops program.
Yeah, so
So,
the first time I ever went was when I was 10.
okay.
And then I went once when I was 10 for that camp, once when I was 11. And then when I was 12, Arthur, that's when he was still on the staff, but then like coaching at my gym a few days a week.
Okay.
So he like sent Marta some footage of me, and he was like, I have this girl that I think can like make it. And she invited me when I was 12. And then I just started going consistently from then. And then obviously when I made the national team,
So
then
one of the things that I heard is that when the young girls go for the tops program, that they're not always even chaperoned in the cabins when they're staying together. That they don't even always have an adult there.
no,
Okay.
for me at least, I mean, but we're talking, this is already like the year, what, 2001 or two?
Okay.
But we had a chaperone because I remember like crying in my bunk, and like the camp counselor chaperone lady was like consoling me.
Okay.
I had a hard time sleeping there. So yeah, she was there, but maybe it changed later.
Were you warned about the ranch ahead of time? Like, did you
No,
know?
this is
Okay.
actually kind of funny because when I was 10, I was like I had never gone to like summer camp. And then I made the TOPS program, and I thought it was going to be like a summer camp kind of thing. I was like, I'm going to camp. And it was like the worst like shock ever. And I would call my parents every night because we had calling cards. And I'd be like, I want to come home. This is not like camp. I thought it was going to be like Parent Trap kind of camp.
And did your coaches know that it was bad, or were they? Okay, because I guess can you put into perspective like what makes because like AOGC doesn't seem like a picnic, right? So what is the difference between camp and your everyday level of fun that you're having training with Galena and Arthur?
Well, first of all, I think the biggest difference is that like I could like come home and like be with like my sister and my parents, and like, I mean, at this age, I was still like eating more normally, and I could like pick what I wanted for dinner and watch TV. And it's like here, like you're in these like cold ass cabins, and the water smells like rotten eggs, and the food is yucky, and so that whole side was just not fun. But I mean, we were doing 2-a-day practices at Tops Camp, but this is with 9, 10, and 11-year-olds. I don't remember how long they were, but I think combined it was at least like 6 hours. So it was like just like a lot more training. It was just, I don't know, it was just really serious, and just not a lot of smiles, not a lot of laughing. And these kids are really young. I think they kind of treated us a little bit like we were like already on the national team.
Okay.
We were like 10.
Okay. So you eventually do make the national team, and I'm curious, like you go to elite, you start going to these camps. One of the gymnasts from 2000, like the 2004, told me that they used to write down every mistake that they made, every step, so like what kind of things did they kind of implement to kind of, I know that it's survival of the fittest, and they say that it's to make people mentally tough, but like what kind of tactics were they implementing at the ranch?
I didn't see anyone like writing things down, except there was like a specific coach that I did see that would like write down like what like his gymnast would do. And then even say like so and so looks fat today. So and so like is a lazy bee today or whatever, like write it down in his journal because she said she read it once. But as far as like the actual camp, I don't know, Marta just kind of had this like dooming presence that like she would just like go around and like look, and whenever she would come, like I don't know, things just got like really quiet. She would just kind of look around. It was just serious. There was just a lot of like tears, a lot of overworking. I don't know. It's like I look back and I think I've like put like a lot of it like out of my head, and like I remember it, but like I don't like really remember it. Like I feel like it like happened to someone else.
Okay.
Um,
I
I don't know.
mean, you talk about the overworking. So I think I'm curious, like what that means, like in tangible terms. So obviously you have your set number of routines that you do at home, and you're doing 2 days here. It sounds like you had one long practice at home or 2 days or.
Yeah, we would do like 7 hours and then like hopefully get an hour break, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes 15, sometimes none.
Okay.
And
And
then ranch, I think we would do 7 hours broken up into like 3.5 hour chunks. So it's like the same, just different.
and is it
Um,
more physically exhausting or mentally exhausting because you're on all the time and they're like saying that everything counts essentially?
yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, probably more mentally. I think a lot of us also, the food wasn't that great, and some of us like always got like stomach problems when we were there, and I don't know if it was combined with like nerves or if there was like something in the food, but it was just not good for everybody. And I think it was, yeah, it was just like numbers. I think Marta just like really liked to see numbers over and over and over again. So it was more like if we got like 40 minutes on an event, it would be like, how many volts can you do in 40 minutes? Like, let's just go, 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 go. Like, if you're like still like breathing heavy, like you just go. Like, it's just like you didn't really have an option. Or like same with bars. Like, it wasn't really smart training. It was just quantity. Like, I remember starting a lot of my routines still being like really out of breath.
So I think one of the big debates about the Carolis is, are they good technical coaches or are they just people that get you into like this state where you feel like you can do anything because you survived them, right? Like, is
Yeah, and
it?
I'm not sure because Bella never coached us. He was retired at this point. And Marta didn't really coach me either. I can only speak for myself. I mean, she would like maybe give a suggestion here or there, or like say like straighten your legs or something, but she didn't coach me consistently. So it could just be like a scare tactic thing.
And I know that the attention and the ignoring that they do for people, which, becomes in your story later on essentially, but I know that at the camps too, like the kind of feedback that you get from her and like how much attention is not equal with everyone. So were you in her favor in the beginning? Because you were moving up pretty quickly from junior to
Yeah.
potential to senior. Okay.
I felt like I was.
Okay.
And there were other girls where if they weren't, then I don't think she would even like bother to like learn their name.
Okay.
Or at the end of every camp, we would kind of line up and she would like talk to us one on one.
Okay.
And sometimes she would like grab our faces and like say like good job or like bad job or whatever. And with the girls that she liked, it would take a long time. And then with the ones that she didn't really care about, she'd just be like, okay, and then just like move on. It was very clear.
So was she invested in you? Because you were a big option for 2008. And I am revisiting this for another video that I'm working on about the fact that the Chinese team was underage in 2008 and that people are rediscovering this because they were re-airing the Olympics and there's been debate about this. And I was going into old notes. But you were one of the big options for 2008. It would be like if you put people's names on a board, right? Like
I have to disagree though.
No, you were.
I have to disagree, honestly, and I'm not like trying to be like humble or anything, but I just really don't think I didn't have any international experience, hardly. I had done some like junior Pan Ams and some World Cups and like stuff like that, but
Bridget
in her
Sloan didn't
eyes,
have much either.
I knew I was just like I wasn't consistent enough for her. Even though I hit all my routines at Olympic trials, I remember her saying in training I wasn't consistent enough. And I just didn't have the experience.
So she would tell you that, like flat out?
Yeah. I was like, I was really sad when I didn't make the team. But as I just turned 16, and as a 16-year-old, I think I knew going into the Olympic trials, I was like, my goal is to just like hit all my routines and make it to the Olympic selection camp. I don't think I'm going to make the Olympics. Granted, I was crying and really sad when I didn't, but I kind of knew I wasn't going to, even if I did my best.
Was 2008 your goal? Because you were kind of like in between Olympics to like have your peak. So
yeah, as a kid, like growing up, 2008 was my goal, and then after that, I think I took like 5 days off because I had like a really bad stress fracture in my shin, and I took like.
Did you actually compete at the selection camp, or did you not compete because of your shin?
I competed, yeah.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
And did you compete well at the selection camp?
I hit all my routines again. We had another 2 days of it was just like a replica of the Olympic trials. So it's like, what's the whole point of the Olympic trials? We just had like another Olympic trials at the ranch.
It's amazing how they don't learn though, because if you learn the history of the Karolis, Nadia had a sprained ankle in '76. They had Kim Zamaskal had a bad stress fracture, and she wasn't able to do her top skills or her best performance in '92, and Dominic Motrano had a very similar injury, even worse, in 1996. So they continually overtrain and break their top athletes, yet.
But it's like, does it matter because they're still winning, right?
They are, but they weren't completely satisfied. So Bella and Marta were so upset by their own performance as coaches in '92, and especially '92, that they left. Like, they left their gymnasts at the Olympics. Like, I was interviewing Betty Aquino, and she was saying that, like, they just left them there after Olympic trials. Like, they pieced out, didn't say bye, like, flew home,
That's what Arthur did to me after Worlds. He just left me at the airport.
Like to get your parents to come get you, or?
I had to call my sister. She was going to USC, like, in college, and she, like, had to come pick me up at the airport.
Okay, we're going to get to that. I have, like, so many questions about this. Like, okay. But through 2008.
Peace out, I guess.
2008, you had two problems.
I did not know that. Anyway, what?
A couple problems in 2008. You were going against Sam Pesek, who had more experience, and her mom worked for USAG. So you were kind of, just, like, no offense to anyone, but, like, it's how the world works.
No, let's be honest. Like, you know, she has the upper hand.
Yeah, she had the upper hand, okay? Like, you had very similar strengths. And then there was the whole theory that some girl was going to come and, like, be a bar worker to save the day, even though...
Right. That wasn't me.
No, that wasn't you. They thought it would be maybe Bridget Sloan or Shayla, but it was really kind of neither. So
yeah. Ooh, it ended up being Chelsea Memel, right? Like, she only did bars, I think, at that Olympics.
Yeah. But they broke her too, you know, before.
She had a broken foot.
Yeah. So so at the final camp, like, how cutthroat was this camp for the Olympics? Because they're having the Olympic trials basically behind closed doors, which they already had in Olympic trials where everyone actually performed very well in front of 30,000 people. So there's not really a case to have more pressure than you were already under in Philadelphia. So they're redoing this.
They're doing an entire other secret Olympic trials. Mm-hmm. And it's just I don't know how many people made it from the Olympic trials, maybe like 12 made it to the selection camp, and then they want to narrow it down to the 6 and then 3 alternates. Mm-hmm. I think it was actually maybe just 11 because me and Chelsea Davis and Shayla, unless Shayla was an alternate. Or no, she wasn't.
Shayla was there, but didn't she break her leg when she was there?
She was out. She wasn't at the selection camp. Me and Chelsea Davis were like the only girls that didn't get anything because everyone else was either on the team or an alternate.
And did they not take you because you were injured? Because they randomly pretend that they hate injured athletes, but throughout the Karolis' history, they petitioned Betty Aquino with a broken back and a knee injury, and she didn't compete at the trials or the nationals. They got her there.
Yeah, everyone was injured, I think, on the Olympic team in some way. Like, well, not everyone, but they obviously have pain. But yeah, like Chelsea had like a bad foot, and
Sam was injured, and
Sam had something like a shoulder or elbow. I don't even remember.
And a knee, and yeah.
Well, I do, like, Arthur did, like, make me go up to Marta, and because I was just in a lot of tears, and I think, like, looking back at the x-ray, I had like a cut, like, straight across the shin, just like a line, and he made me go up to Marta and say, like, I can't compete, I'm too injured. And I think even though I didn't want to, but I think because of my I think because he was upset that I was like crying a lot or like looking like I was in pain or not good at pretending like I wasn't. He made me go up to her and tell her that. So I don't know if that played into me not making the team. Don't think I would have made the team anyway.
So you didn't compete at all at the. You did compete.
This is after. This is after when they're like selecting.
So then he's almost. But did you hit when you were at
Almost
this?
like wanting me to like sabotage myself and not even give myself a chance.
So was he afraid that you weren't going to make it, even as an alternate? So
Probably.
Did he want you to be an alternate? Like, what was his goal for you?
I don't think he wanted me to be an alternate.
Okay.
I think maybe he knew that it wasn't going to work out, and it was kind of like, instead of being fired, let's resign.
Because that's like really messed up. Because I would think that you were at least going to be an alternate when I was looking at the.
I would have loved that.
Because they wound up taking like Corey Lothrop as an alternate.
I think I may have, because it was Ivana and Corey Lothrop, and I remember I think at that point I did have a little more experience than Corey.
Mm-hmm.
But.
And Yana Beeger, who was like really
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they were never going to take Yana Beeger, but I think they strung her along. Like she didn't have the form that they would have wanted, but they.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I may have had a chance to be an alternate, but I don't think that was what Arthur wanted. Mm-hmm. And I remember, telling Marta and like crying and being like, "This is weird, but I guess this is just what I have to do." Mm-hmm. And that was that. It was just not a good day.
So obviously everyone pretends that they're best friends when they're competing, but you're all obviously going for the same spot, and it's now or never. Like, how tense is it among the girls? Like you're in cabins with one another, but you're also competing with one another.
Like, surprisingly, I was pretty young. I wasn't hanging out with like the seasoned ladies at that point. So I think I was mostly with like Chelsea Davis, the younger ones, me, Corey. I think we were all just like eager to be there and like happy to have made it there. I wish I could tell you that there was like secret like cattiness, but
no, I don't even mean cattiness. I just mean that's intense. Like you're going through the fact that you don't get your own room. Like that's an intense situation to have because you're really. I mean, not that anyone's like maybe old enough to play mind games, but there's like just
I didn't experience any mind games, but maybe like I was like young and didn't even notice that I was being played. But I don't think so. The
fact that Nastia and Sean roomed together at the Olympics, you know that Nastia was on 24/7. Like she is competitive. Like
and rooming with teammates certain people can really affect you. Mm-hmm. And I remember rooming with one of my teammates who I was really close with, Sammy Shapiro, but she was a very, very distracting roommate, extremely distracting. And I remember asking the person who was in charge of rooming us, Gary Warren, if the next time I could room with someone else. And instead of talking to me about it, he went up to Arthur and said, "You have to get your athletes in line." And then Sean Johnson was on a separate trip and was rooming with Sammy Shapiro and asked the same thing, and she got her own room.
Well, she was an A-list athlete. They were invested in making money off of her.
Celeb, and I was like, like C-list, like soap opera, actor.
Yeah, but if you made the team, NBC would have found every film that your mom was in, and they would have made this into like a profile on you, just so you know. Like they had you as an option, okay? Like this was come on, how many times have we seen that like footage of like Bella Crowley lifting up Sam Pezic? So so you didn't make that team. Did that motivate you to make it more? Like did you come from the Olympic selection camp being like, I am going to finish this?
Yeah, I was kind of defeated a little bit at first, but surprisingly, looking back, it didn't take me a while to turn around. I don't think I knew how hard another 4 years of elite would be, just because I'd only been on the national team for like 2 years, not even at that point. So I was like, I can do this. Like I was just like, gung ho, and then it wasn't that easy.
Now, you and Sammy Shapiro, you weren't competitors at this point, so were you pretty close? Because I know that in skating, things change, like when people start getting into the same age group, or someone passes someone, like, there's like an unwritten hierarchy, when things get upended is when all hell breaks loose. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there was like an underlying different competitiveness going on once we were in the same group, but nothing ever rude or
Yeah.
sabotagey,
Mm.
just a little bit more tense.
Yeah. Yeah. So how about I know that the next year is when something happened to you at the camp where you sprained and dislocated both ankles at once, and it was on beam. And I remember
It
the
was on
story at the
floor.
time. Oh, it was on floor. Okay.
Yeah.
It was Marta
What
wanted
did
it.
you hear? I'm interested.
Did Marta want you to do an extra set? I mean, also confusing because there were so many injuries at that darn ranch from the overtraining. So, okay.
This is the thing. At this point, so we used to have, verifications. You've heard of that, right? It's like our competitions at the ranch where like every day at a different practice we'll compete beam, and then next practice you compete verify floor. Next day, bars, and then vault. So, well, we did it in order, vault, bars, beam, floor. So we're on the last day, and they changed it up. They wanted us on floor, I think, and maybe on beam. The new thing was you verify your routine, and then this is when they changed it in the code of points to where you have to stick your landings instead of step out and finish. So after you finish competing, then you have to stick 2 passes. So you complete the entire routine, and then you go back and choose any 2 passes of your choosing, and you have to stick them.
You better pick the important ones.
Right. So, and you can do the same 2.
Oh, okay.
So I competed floor, and I did really well. This is before Worlds 2009, and I was pretty sure I was going to make the team. And I had done floor already, and then the first pass I stick is an Arabian double front, and I stick it. And then I really wanted to do it again. And I think Arthur in his head, he was like, that's a little dangerous. Let's do a 2.5 punch front layout. But me being a little like erratic, I think like when I go really hard on a pass, it's really hard for me to do then like an easier pass because then I get too much momentum. But I couldn't like say that to him. Marta's just like sitting there like waiting. So I do my Arabian double front, and he's like, do a 2.5 punch front layout. And I was like, oh boy. And then I do it, and I just over chuck it so much that I like just over rotate my 2.5 twist and get lost. And then I kind of land with my feet like sickled in. And then I pump into the layout with them both like sickled in, and they just like,
because you have to go for it. So it is, yeah, okay.
yeah, and then like I bounced off my head, and everyone heard a crack, and it was like going like straight to my head, and it was just a whole thing. But basically, they were both just like dangling, like dislocated, and they take me to the hospital there. They give the X-rays straight to Larry. I don't even remember a doctor looking at my X-rays at the hospital, and they said that I was fine. And my feet looked gross, like scary gross. And then he didn't like wrap them to go back home. So on the plane, they're just like crazy.
And was this the last day, or did you have to train again after this?
This was the last day of verifications, but we still had one more full day of training at the ranch. So, and then we had another full day of training, and then we left the next morning.
Did you have to train again? Like, did you?
Well, I had to be in the gym.
What does that mean? Like, you had to do conditioning?
You can't just sit around. Like, I was literally just, like, sitting there with my feet like this, just, like, doing, like, arm curls and shit and, like, trying to look like I'm busy.
Okay.
And, yeah, and then I go home, and they're just, like, not really, like, feeling, like, any better, and I get, like, x-rays again, and there's still a break, and it was just, I'm getting a phone call.
Yes, I have a couple questions about like competing verifications. So, do you think is verification? It sounds tougher to me than when you're like in a normal competition because it's kind of like all the national staff and every kind of competitor.
It's kind of how you would imagine it. Like
everyone's looking at you like this. You're right. Like
they're sitting there, and they would usually the national staff like on most events, every event would like come and watch. Sometimes they'd bring in like elite judges. And yeah, the entire practice is focused just on that one event. So it's just a little more pressure. And
are all the girls watching each other? Like, do you all stop and?
No, no one stops, but you like kind of try to watch people out of the corner of your eye. You still have to go on your other events, but you can tell who's doing well.
Do you feel negative energy? Because you know ultimately that some of these other coaches from other gyms, like it's in their best interest for you to miss. So you feel
I,
that? Like,
I did sometimes. I remember like this is at World Championships. This is a completely separate thing, but at certain competitions, there can only be like one or two like coaches on the floor. And in my warm up, I always needed like a lot of spot in my double layout, and then in
you're getting
competition,
tall for that double layout, Mattie. Like,
in competition, I get enough adrenaline, like I would like shoot, but in training, I needed to be like hoisted.
okay.
And Arthur like told Mihai, he was like, she needs a lot of lift in her practice, and I don't know if this was on purpose or not, but in practice he goes like this and like doesn't even touch me. So
I
I
know that
think
like there's a lot of debate about Mihai. It's very interesting because I read Ali Raisman's book. She didn't really talk about him, but other coaches and other people like viewed him. I listened to an interview with Amy Borman that he was not really a friend to his fellow coaches. So
that I don't know because I obviously
yeah,
did not spend time around the coaches, but he wasn't a friend to me in that
yeah.
moment. That's for damn sure.
Well, yeah, that's what
And
I
I
mean.
thought
As like an
that,
athlete, you're relying
yeah.
on someone who's the coach of your competitor, which
Right, and
sounds
at this point, I had already not even made any individual finals. This is just for team, so you'd think he'd, like do it for the team, but I don't know. I don't want to talk too
yeah,
much bad bud about Mihai because, like, I love Ali, but I just
yeah,
don't have a good experience with him.
yeah.
I just don't.
Now, in terms of Larry, and I don't want to re-traumatize, but you made a really excellent point in your like one of the big questions is always what did Marta know? When did she know it? How did she not know? And why was he there in the first place when he wasn't an expert doctor? And you made the
Yeah,
great
and he was
point,
volunteering. Did you know that too? He wasn't
which
even
is
getting paid.
that's the biggest red flag of all time
And
that you're not getting
you
paid.
understand how much of his life had to be dedicated to volunteering on the national staff. We were there
What did
almost
his
a
wife not know? That he's flying off to be with girls in leotards and not making any
and
money.
we were there almost a week out of every month, like 4 to 5 days every month. Competitions that would sometimes like last almost a week. He had daughters. It's like, and he's volunteering for this, and
So when you're in
also, and
skating, coaches won't do
yeah,
anything without getting paid for it. Okay, like they will not meet with you without getting paid for it. So like the fact that a doctor and doctors make a lot of money. So the fact that a doctor would be flying to Texas in the middle of nowhere to go to a ranch and no one is like aware of this, like so. And like I don't know how much you've spent like thinking about this, but like I'm wondering, like, at what point did you? Because I think that one of the things that's hard for people to understand is that, like, the official story is that Ali and Maggie and Simone were all talking, and that's when like everyone realized that they were being abused. But like, I guess like, is it kind of like a thing where you realize over time that something is wrong, or like, at what point did it kind of
it was a
click?
thing for me. Okay, I'm just gonna be like explicit, and it's like
Okay.
I knew that like his hands were like going inside of me. I knew
Yes.
it's not like I was like blind to it.
Hmm.
I just 100% believed what he said, which was that it was his type of treatment. So in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not being molested. It's just a really weird, uncomfortable type of treatment where he has to put his hands inside of me.
And did that ever help any injury? Like what?
Why
Like
would it? No.
yeah. Well, because yeah. So I think, but you're also a kid who's experiencing like so many different kinds of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, from
Right. Like,
everything.
so like that wasn't abuse. Larry was like nice. And it didn't take much for us, like for him to win us over. Like he gave us some candy and we were like,
That's a
oh,
low bar, okay?
it's a very low bar to make us,
Also, the
trust.
fact that he would give you candy is not to like make a joke, but like when you're 5 years old, they tell you like be afraid of the guy in the car. Like I feel like when we were in school, they always told you like be afraid of the guy in the car who tries to offer you candy. He's gonna like lure you as a predator. And like here, Larry Nassar is like giving elite gymnasts candy.
It,
Like this
it's
is
very cliche.
yeah,
And it's kind of sad how like clear it is and the fact that he just like got away with it for so long. But
Was he
yeah,
friends with the coaches? I mean, I know that he was friends with John Geddert from the different stuff that's written, but like, what? Like, did your coaches ever ask you about him? Did they respect him? Like, what was their take
I
on
think they
him?
respected him. I think he was a little bit socially awkward, so he didn't, at least for with me, what I noticed is that like we would have like dinners and stuff on trips and even like in like the cafeteria or whatever at the ranch, and Larry didn't spend a lot of time talking with the adults. Um,
Which is strange.
yeah, he was either more on his own or with us.
The coaches
And
who are all drinking, partying, and sleeping with one another while
yeah,
you're being
he was
molested.
exactly, which is so true. Larry wasn't a part of that gang. Like he would be, I think while the coaches were drinking and partying and stuff, that's when he was molesting us
Yeah.
and being nice to us and talking to us.
And would you all like compare notes about him over time? Like, was it, I guess, like,
I didn't. I
yeah.
really, for me, I did not speak to a single teammate about Larry's treatment style while I was on the national team.
Okay.
Just didn't.
Um,
Yeah.
but it just seems to me, and like I'm not being there, like I've tried to think about this, like critically, that it almost seems like the next part of a shit Sunday, right? Like you're having a horrible day and like all aspects of the ranch from like the cafeteria to the training to everything that this is just like part of it. Like this is
Right.
just
So let's, yeah, it's like at the like the cherry on top is let's add in this nice guy who seems like he's on your side and just have him molest you.
how about the photographs? Because I know that there is a lot of talk, and one of the big mysteries is like, was there a ring of pornography? Like, did people have the same images on their computers of
Oh, you
this?
mean like people within the gymnastics world?
Well, they said that he was obsessed, yes, and that he was obsessed with taking pictures. Because, you know, at Michigan State, there were different images that were found, you know, of,
And I know there was child
yeah,
pornography found on his computer.
yeah. And I
Um,
believe people that were, I don't want to like misspeak, but I believe people that were supervising him essentially, you know, had the same. And I think this is one of the big
I didn't know about that.
mysteries, you know, but like, was this some sort of a like abuse ring, you know, or who knew what when? Because I find it very difficult to, and I know that all of these elite coaches like drink, some of them drink the Kool-Aid hard, some of them are from training backgrounds where they were abused themselves, so this is like very normal to them. Like I'm sure Galena and Arthur like were products of their own coaches.
And I don't think they were given any professional training to like look for red flags.
No, no. And like in the US, like almost anyone can be a coach. Like you almost anyone can be a coach, which is another problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so just it's horrible, you know, what you all went through. And it's hard because I think that everyone wants to like retroactively protect you and like understand, you know, like what
But it's
happened.
actually really hard to understand. Like if
Yes.
you're not in it, it's like
And then people want to blame the parents who aren't allowed at the ranch, you know, and so and so I know that everyone is seeing him and he's abusive. So I guess when did you come to your understanding through like therapy and everything that what he did was abuse? Like at what state? Like what year do you know? Like when you
yeah. God, this was like 2015 or 16. Um, and it was with I remember, I think it was 2016, and an old teammate of mine who was on the national team for like a hot second, um, called me and was like, I just like saw this article about Larry, and she didn't like say anything specifically. She was like, I just want you to like read it and then like get back to me. And it was Rachel Denhollander's article with the Indy Star.
when her
And
and
I
Jamie,
read it
yeah.
and then called this girl back, and the like we were just so silent, and we're like, are we like, is this what Larry did to us like all this time? And it clicked right there. We were like, all this time, it wasn't treatment. All this time, it was abuse. And it just made sense. It made sense that, like, what he was saying to her with internal treatment and how he didn't want us to wear underwear when he was treating us, and how he would ask us if we had started our periods yet. Things you don't need to know when you're treating an ankle or a knee.
Yeah.
And just like the weird stretches that he would do where he would just like put all of his body weight and just like lie on top of you and just be like sweaty and just have this like look in his eye where it was just.
So what kind of injuries was he like? And I really think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that he would overlook injuries, because if you look at Michaela Maroney and what we know about concussions now, she famously gets a concussion in 2012 nationals, even just like landing on the floor, like doing a twist that she overdoes.
Yeah.
She competes 2 weeks later when like you're supposed to be in a dark room or whatever, and she's probably training at AOGC probably days later, I'm imagining. What? Yeah.
Definitely training.
So she's doing that, which is incredibly unsafe, right? Then Michaela Maroney she had a broken shin, broken toes, right? Like she was put together by glue, but she was going to win the vault, and she was kind of the charismatic personality of the team. So they really needed her. And Steve Penny seemed very aware as a marketer about like who was going to sell gymnastics.
They weren't going to put her on the team. It was just not an option.
It was not an option.
If she's alive, she's going to be on the team.
I mean, and like granted, like her form and vault technique was the most stunning thing I've ever seen in my life. So like I probably would have made that same decision or wanted to, but at the same time you think about how unhealthy and unsafe it was, and the fact that she even competed at Olympic trials when they were going to put her on the team anyway. And the fact that they pretend that this whole competition is like really how they pick things. It's like a charade. But you think like, so was he just allowing people to do very unsafe things and signing off on it? Because that would be like why he primarily had access in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why Marta like really liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because he was, in her eyes, a doctor saying, they're fine.
Yeah, so they could say, we had a doctor there. He said he was fine.
Right, so then in Marta's eyes, I'm sure she can be like, well, like, yeah, the injury may look bad, but we have this professional doctor saying she's okay, so I'm not the bad guy, she's fine.
I think, what do you think Marta knew? Because Marta is a cunning woman who could have people look through your bags to see if you're sneaking food. I mean, like, she tries to know everything, and yet, like, she has really skated away from this whole scenario. Like, first of all, she's like, well, I wasn't in charge of the camp, even though it's on her property, and she's really running things, even though Steve Penny is essentially her boss. So, like, what? They handed all power to her. So, like, I guess, like, what do you think she knew? Or,
I mean, just because I'm biased and it happened to me, I think she knew that we were being abused. But look, I don't know what's going on in her head. If she didn't know that, I think she knew that a grown man was in our rooms with us alone when we would go on trips in our hotels, and he was spending more time with us than anybody else. And she obviously knew that he was like kind of lenient with our injuries,
which would be positive to her. So
right, I can't say that like I know. I'm positive that she knew he was molesting us. It's like, it's impossible for me to say. Like I said, I'm not in her head, but
it's very frustrating to me when I watch the interviews with her that are given from like people on the Today Show who are very glib about the questions that they ask. You know, when you saw the interview with Savannah Guthrie, like
I didn't watch their interviews. Are you kidding?
She just like wasn't asked anything concrete, right? Like you could list, like you let this person compete with this concussion, this, that, like, and the other, like, hello, right? So
I can't watch it. It's too frustrating. I think the biggest thing, and I'm gonna go back to this always, it's like she knew that there's a grown man in a hotel room by himself with minors for however long as he wants.
Yeah.
At any hour.
Yeah. That
right there is already just like child safety 101. You don't do that.
Yeah. And I'm also curious because, and I don't want to like, it's awful to speculate, but like, we did see like a timeline of like which gymnasts from which eras have said, and like the 2008 team has been very quiet, at least publicly, about whether or not he was there. So was he around during that time, like 2007, 2008? Like
Yeah.
obviously, right? Yeah.
Because I was around and he was around me.
Were there coaches who wouldn't allow themselves to like see Larry Nassar? I remember that Nastia had her own doctor. Like her dad seems pretty smart, right? Like I think they want the best, you know? Like
Yeah, like I remember, like yeah, I think her dad would like tape her and stuff. Like when Larry would like tape most of us up. I don't remember if Larry would do any like would actually like physically like touch her. I don't like really remember. I know like for us who like weren't like Nastias at the time, like we had to see Larry regardless of if we felt like okay or not.
but I just want to
We
be clear,
had to.
like I'm not saying that Larry knew that Larry was a
Right, were you
molester.
saying? Were you
Many
saying it
people
makes
thought that Larry was a quack because like there was a judge that knew that he was only an osteopath and that he wasn't board certified in Texas and all of this stuff. And there was a judge that used to try to report him all the time and tell me about it for years that USAG had a quack running the whole thing.
I
It's
didn't even know that.
it's just mind-boggling when you think about what people have to sign off for insurance with the USOC. I mean, I'm sure when that finally gets settled, but I'm
I know.
all
It's just like you think like the best that the country has to offer, and we have probably the best gymnasts in the world. You would get a legitimate doctor
think about how much time they
and
put.
pay for one, maybe pay
Yeah.
for one.
Think about how much time they put into marketing you, into training you, into technique, into
The
like
least you could do is pay for a real doctor. It's not that hard.
considering like the injuries, right? Like, come on, right? Like
Right. Probably more injuries than most other sports.
the other thing that really has always gotten me about the gall and the nerve of USAG, though, about who we're dealing with, though, is that you have to think that like in 2015, they find out about Larry. Steve Penny knows, right? But in 2016, while they're keeping everyone quiet as things are being delayed with the FBI, they filmed that documentary, The Ranch, where all of the people who are molested by Larry Nassar have to then go on camera, like all of them, and talk about like how great the ranch is, how like, and they're like eating marshmallows, but they're also like basically doing like a puff piece on the Carollis, like this, and the ranch system, which like, hello, like,
This is kind of sad. I didn't even know about this, and I think it's because I was just going through such a phase where I was just so pissed off. Like anything gymnastics, I was like, absolutely not. So I didn't even know that that was a thing.
I mean, I don't recommend for you watching it for your mental health, but like I do just know that like it existed, and like Allie Raisman and Maggie Nichols and Simone are just like saying how they need to like walk through that hall. Again, these gymnastics interviews where people learn the BS to spew and to
Right.
look happy because that's what you're supposed to do now. Is that like they're learning that we have, and I think Simone says you have to thank all the gymnasts that came before you when you walk through that hall, and I mean it's
I'm so happy it's like changing a little bit and they're able to speak their minds a little bit more.
Simone is
I
very
remember,
empowered. She is
yeah,
speaking her mind. So,
she needs to. And I
yeah.
remember watching an old interview of Michaela like back in the day, kind of when she like first was like coming up the scene and like training at my gym. And yeah, I remember like seeing her interview and just being like, it's just so great. Everything is so great. Like these are my friends. Like life is good. And it's just like knowing how not happy she was.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch.
So, 2010, the biggest thing is that summer, you were like in the best form of your entire life, and you looked very, I don't know if you were or not, but from a viewer, you were one of the gymnasts that looked happy because you were able to sell it and you had personality and you were such a performer and you looked very confident in your routines. Like, was that real or was that like what you were
I'm
trained?
happy because I was doing well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
what changed between nationals, where you were on top of the world? Tara Modlin wanted to represent you. I remember my friend was working for her at the time. Like, she was trying to like follow your parents around.
Yeah.
Your
I
mom was like, "My daughter is going to endorse things." She was saying to my friend, like, and I remember, yeah, you go on to Worlds, and you just didn't have that same look in your eye. in the world's footage that
No, I was scared.
yeah. So what
I,
changed? Because many people felt like you were the best gymnast in the country, or you and Rebecca Bross were one and two. So I guess like what was it, just like soul sucking, like the training before the worlds, or like what happened?
um, I liken it to, I think the training was okay. And
Because they
then
like to
we
do all
had the
that
good,
training without days off, right? Like that's a Marta special before Worlds or Olympics.
yeah. I mean, I was definitely overtraining. And then we had a good amount of training at the ranch, like when they picked the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then we trained more, and then we went straight from there to Rotterdam.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the training at the ranch did not go well for me.
Mm.
And my Galena pulled me aside and said, "You're not going to make the team if you keep training like this." And I remember thinking, like, I didn't think it was going that poorly. I think she just wanted me to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I was making mistakes here and there. But I was also kind of neurotic and very in my head. And I think hearing that made me like,
It doesn't
and
help, right?
I just, yeah. And, you know, I wasn't at the place where I could, you know, like have it roll off my back. I really like took things in. And I think like the ranch, looking back, that time training at the ranch before Rotterdam just kind of changed things for me. And I think in my head, I was like, maybe I don't deserve to be here. Maybe my training isn't going as well as it is. I was second guessing myself. I know I was also like losing a lot of weight and feeling like weaker.
Mm-hmm.
I just, and
So
going
yeah.
into national championships, I think that it was more of a like, you got this, and if you do your best, you're going to win mentality. And going into worlds, it was like, I don't know. I really don't know. This is the biggest competition I'm ever gonna like really go to. Like stuff is like riding on this. I think I did feel a lot of pressure from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you know, it's just a combination of things. And
Were you considering going pro seriously, or like what was? Yeah.
yeah, yes and no. I
Mm-hmm.
think my mom wanting me to go pro was a really loud voice in this ear. My dad wanting me to stay amateur and
Your
go
dad,
to
who
college.
does the music for UCLA's floor routines, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a good time, and
And they split at some point, right? So
yeah, they separated in 2008,
okay.
and then still living in the same house, but separated.
Did
for
gymnastics
3
contribute to that? Because a lot of parents, when you talk to anyone, and researching another video that I'm working on, every single mother goes, "My husband will kill me if I knows that I'm talking about this," but yada
Yeah,
yada.
gymnastics played a huge part, and money did, and I think the money stemmed from gymnastics.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't good times like at home for those 3 years, 2008 to 2011, because they were like divorced, but not technically divorced and living together. But yeah, worlds just like I just felt like I was on my A game at nationals, and things were just going right, and I was in like a flow state.
Mm-hmm.
And at worlds, I always felt like I was just like scrambling, and it just I don't know, it just wasn't there for me. And
So how many, did they tell you the lineups, like what they're projected to be ahead of time? Because I know that there was talk that like, is Bridget Sloan going to be the alternate? Is Chelsea Davis going to be the alternate? Like what
well,
kind
they
of?
changed it at some point.
Okay.
I think originally one was the alternate, and then while we were at Worlds, they switched it, and then right before the competition, they switched it again.
Okay.
Um,
Which is to keep
and I
you
think-
all on your toes. Like that's
Yeah.
on purpose.
right. If
Yeah.
you're not performing up to standard, then they can be like, well, you're replaced. I mean,
Yeah.
duh.
The other thing is that, like, obviously you wouldn't know this, but I was starting to cover sports at this time, and like, the Russians were expected to win. Like, I know that like you're very upset that like the team is very upset that they
Right.
lost.
I did not know that.
The Russian team was winning everything all year, and like Marta would have known that. Like, I mean, I know her game is consistency, but the Russians made a lot of mistakes. Like, that's how you guys got even close to begin with. But they were supposed to like walk away with it. Like Alia Mustafina was like in the peak of her career before she ruined her knee, and like they were supposed to kick your asses. Like that's just the way that it was supposed to be. Like the fact that you guys got so close was their fault to begin with. So
right, but the fact that we didn't win in the end, and I know it's like people like, but it's like I clearly made the biggest mistakes. Like I'm not like still like banging myself
so
up about it.
Happened because like you had trouble just on floor. You were hitting your other events. It was not like you were like a mess on every event at the World Championships.
Right. So in the team finals, I only competed floor.
Yes.
So
but you stuck your vault in the prelims, and it was beautiful. They should have put you on vault in the finals, probably. Like,
yeah.
I'm wondering like what. So prelims did not go great for you. Are you devastated at this point? Because USAG actually, and this is so hilarious that they still have this video up on their YouTube, but you're like, you know, I'm just not the kind of person to let this like sink in with me. I'll be fine. I'll just like roll it off for tomorrow. And then they still have your interview up after team finals, okay? Where you're like, it's just so great that we have everyone else on the team to like.
I've seen that too. I'm like, oh my, I'm like, girl, I have never straight up lied.
Yes. Oh,
I've seen that. It's so sad.
But you think that they would take it down? You think like someone would get a clue and be like, no.
Literally saying that, like dying inside.
Yeah.
Being like, everything's gonna be okay.
So, I guess there was like a lot of debate whether you should do floor or Sloan should do floor for the finals.
Because I was just being really inconsistent in practice and in both prelims. Or we had podium training, and then a prelim, and then finals. So I'm both
being so consistent either, though. Otherwise, they would have just picked her. I mean, Marta would not care about pulling your behind out. Like, she's not gonna lose any sleep over it. So. It's not like they had another great option, that there was like someone sitting that's like going to win the world. Like the team was struggling. Okay.
Yeah. We were struggling. It was, we weren't running on all cylinders.
Rebecca Bross had like a bad injury to herself. She's vaulting with a boot
that poor
on her.
girl was just always so injured.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not a very clean trip. There's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I just messed up in podium training. I messed up in prelims, and I remember, Marta told me, she's like, at this point, like you're not going to be in finals. So you have to prove to me that you're going to make it. And she's like, do you think you can do it? And I was like, yes, I promise. Like I can do it. And I didn't.
Do you remember like if it was a technical thing or if it was just like a mental, you were shot at that point? Like what do you think? Would you think it was more physical or mental at that point?
I think it was like a complete combo. Mental because I was like, well, everything's riding on this. And I promised her that I would make it. And like, I was like, at this point, I'm not doing anything else in this competition because I didn't make any finals. And I didn't make all around. I didn't make events. And I was like, this is it.
How was the Marta pep talk before Worlds? Because like Bella's known for like, you know, at least on TV, he presents himself as being this person.
He didn't really give like pep talks.
Like you're gonna go out there to win the Worlds, you would think that you're gonna like hear something that's gonna like.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, I think at that point I was just like so nervous. It didn't even really matter like what anyone said. I was just like shaking inside. But I do know that we also had a morning practice that day of team finals. And then we had, you know how like before a competition, you like warm up all the events and then you go and compete for like, you get like an hour and a half or 2 hours. So we had some training already that day. And I strictly remember the entire day, all I had is a triangle of a Toblerone bar after training in the morning and then having to compete later.
And did they encourage you to eat or did they encourage you not to eat?
We had like meals and I didn't really eat lunch, but like no one said anything. I'm sure they're like, that's fine. Like she doesn't want to eat. She doesn't want to eat.
Okay.
But I think for me, like I guess I had been hearing from Galena, like, you know, sucking on a lemon will work for so long. I thought it was going to work.
Galena seems really healthy. You know, that's. With
That
her
was
blonde damaged hair that she has like bottled up. Yeah, okay.
I know, but
Okay, so
yeah, it was really mental and physical, and yeah, it was just not good, and I was just so scared to get off the podium, just like
so
frightened.
what happened? Like, was Marta's reaction worse, or was your own coach's reaction worse when you?
My own coaches.
So what did
Because I
they do?
think like I already knew that I had seen Marta treat other girls not that well and ignore them or replace them and stuff like that. So I expected her to not talk to me really, and she didn't. She like didn't acknowledge me for the rest of the trip.
Which is a long time to be ignored for when you have
Right.
nothing going on.
Still had individual event finals and team finals, and we were still watching the men compete. And then we
Do you
had a few.
train those days? Like, does the team still have to condition and stuff, or do you get those days off?
We were training.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
training for a reason.
okay.
Um, and so I kind of expected her, but yeah, my own coaches just kind of. I remember like Arthur kind of shrugging his shoulders, and it was more of like,
Were they done with
you,
you at that point? Because they had Michaela. So were they already?
I think they were just so upset and disappointed that they didn't know how to act. And like I said, he left me at the airport. I took a few days off practice, went back to the gym and still didn't talk to me, was still ignoring me. And I remember going home and telling like my parents, I was like, I think if I want to continue to do gymnastics, I have to switch gyms.
And I
I was like,
remember that
because
you were not. I remember that every coach that I remember you trying to switch gyms and they all turned you down. But do you think that that came from Marta, or do you? Because it was very strange is that the Carolis used to steal gymnasts from everywhere. This is the great irony of all time: is that they used to steal gymnasts from everywhere. Yet when they became in charge of the national team, they didn't want people to steal each other's athletes because they wanted like team harmony, as if that's a real thing.
wow, I didn't know if Marta had an influence in that, but she
Oh,
very well
come
could have.
on. If she wanted you, if she wanted someone, Valerie Liukin, to take you, you would have been in Texas the next day. Like,
Yeah, I didn't try to go to Woga. I didn't want to train with Valeri. Um,
he
I'd
wasn't so nice
retire.
to you at
I'd
Worlds.
retire before I wanted to train with him. But I think I went to Kelly Hill and Gianni Wu's gym, who the Kaquatas went to. Um, and yeah, I remember them. They said the same thing. They were like, Arthur wants to keep training you. Like you just need to go back and give him time. Like being like, that's just Arthur.
Let's think about this. These coaches, like, think about Maggie Haney. She can smell a world team member, a national team member. These coaches used to collect them. This thought in their mind, it's not like they are just so sad for Arthur. Okay, let's get a clue.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
this comes from, they know what they are supposed to say. You know that they are like,
I
USAG knows
never.
in advance that you're visiting them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, word gets around easy. So yeah, I'm sure Marta had an influence. And then it made it even worse because then I had to come back to
or Kathy
AOGC.
Kelly, who is
Tried
also,
to leave, but
yeah.
couldn't leave, and
So,
then go back to practice and be like, I'm here again. And it was just,
did they ever have like a meeting with you, like a mature, like, this is what our expectations?
it was so immature, and there was just hardly anything was said. And I remember like sitting there crying, and Arthur being like, "Are you ready to train again?" And then I was just like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, let's go. Like, let's do it. Fine." Like that was it. No real talk, no apology, not even asking me what prompted you to even want to look at other gyms.
As if he didn't know. Yeah, like,
I mean, yeah, it
uh,
was just handled in the weirdest, most like not like even saying anything, beating around the bush. Nothing was
and like, think about this. You have Kelly Hill, who Dominic Dawes doesn't talk to anymore, who always had a good reputation, like a better reputation,
better.
right? Right, that she was one of the saner ones, like maybe a B, but like a saner one, and some of her athletes liked her. You have Wu Jiani, who I mean, there are some articles about that situation. I don't think that would have maybe turned out so great. But again, not many good options. But the fact that they're all telling you the same thing is like a huge red flag. You know, that like there's something really wrong with this. Like Marta was done with you. So did you still have to go back to camp? Like, did she ever talk to you again?
I went back to camp, and it was just
And
different.
like, why? Like, did you think that like the
I
other?
was still gonna try for 2012. That's why
Did you think
a- after Worlds,
like she famously like said that she was done with someone? Like, do you think that she?
she never actually said the words "I'm done with you, Maddie,"
Yeah.
um, but I don't know. Like, I'm an intuitive person. Like, she didn't she didn't watch me at training. She didn't give me like the same talks at the end of the camp. She would used to like ask Arthur, like I could hear her like while I was training on beam, like how's she doing at home? Like, you know, how are things? How are her injuries? Like blah, blah. She just like really didn't care. It was more like she gave me a chance. I failed, and that's that. And, you know, there are other gymnasts. And yeah, it was just so uncomfortable, and things just weren't the same at my home gym. Things weren't the same at the ranch.
So you go to UCLA with kind of like not a break in between. Were you rejuvenated or were you just done? You know, when you.
I was rejuvenated, I think, on like a emotional level. Like I was like, I am in college. I'm away from my parents who hate each other and like need to get a divorce but still haven't in 3 years.
Your mom was devastated about you quitting Elite, though. I remember hearing from people. Yes.
Devastated.
Yeah.
Devastated. It was really.
Were they comforting to? Was she comforting to you after the Worlds, or was she devastated too?
No, she was always so comforting, no matter how well I did. But she was just like, this is just like a bump in the road. Like, the Olympics are only a year away. Don't stop. Keep going. I mean, and then not only did I go to college, but I went to UCLA, which is, you know, my parents really didn't like each other at this point. My dad was spending a lot of time with Val because he was cutting the music and stuff. And my mom, I don't know if she actually like thought this or not, but she like told me, she's like, don't go there. Your father is having an affair with Val. Go anywhere other college, not there. And then I went there, and then just like all hell broke loose. It was just a really bad time.
What happened there? Because I remember that Meet the Bruins, like the whole world wanted to see what you and Val would do on floor together. You were known as a performer. She was, you know, she's a great choreographer, and like you were going to go to UCLA since you were like a fetus. So like what, you know, what was.
I think I was just physically like done with gymnastics. I had no more like motivation. I did not care. I was like showing up to practice like hungover like all the time, and I was like partying a lot, and I still wasn't treating my body well.
You were depressed, and you were experiencing lots of.
I was taking a lot of laxatives, and and then that mixed with like, you know, like drinking alcohol for the first time in my life, and I really didn't care how I was doing in the gym. I was just happy to like have a life. And I feel really bad because like they were kind of counting on me. I was like the #1 recruit of my class, but no, there was just no way that I was motivated enough to like.
You did bars and beam. I remember that you didn't do floor much. And do you think that was that tied to your performance? The fact that you missed floor at Worlds, were you like scarred, or were you just not in the shape to do floor, like the condition?
Probably both.
Okay.
But I think more so like the shape. Like I like couldn't get through a floor routine.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think when I did, the few times I did compete floor, I did always have like a big error. Like I would step out of bounds or like miss a connection or something like in college. Yeah, I was very in my head.
Well, you were traumatized by what had happened. So
yeah.
So what was the plane ride back home from Worlds when you did Arthur like not speak to you on the plane the entire time? Like what is?
I don't remember the plane ride at all. Like okay. I have zero recollection.
Were the girls allowed to speak to you, or is it the kind of thing where like they know that they're not supposed to be seen being?
The girls were like talking to me. when we were like in our rooms and stuff. And we even ended up like going out one night and like having like a good time. But like when like the coaches were around and stuff, it was just different. I think like, at least for me, I couldn't like look like I was like enjoying myself.
You have to be mourning your mistake until the end of time. Okay.
Exactly. I remember like I had like a different hairstyle than I usually did. Like I had like bangs at that point and I had highlighted my hair and I felt like really cute about it. So after I messed up the next time that we were watching the boys compete in the arena, I had like my hair all done and like my female coach Galena like brought me aside and she was like, you have no right to wear your hair like that. Like put it up. Like I couldn't even like want to like feel like cute about myself. And we got like a per diem to like buy things and Galena told me I didn't deserve the per diem for the trip. You know, it was just not a good time.
In the interview, you were very excited that she was at the Worlds. Just so you know, like that you didn't know she was.
Yeah, because I didn't know she was coming. Yeah.
Did you like her at this point, or?
No. Lies, just more lies.
Like, is she better than Arthur or worse than Arthur?
She's better than Arthur. I think just because we have a longer history and she did have a heart. But she still scared me. But like I would spend time at her house growing up. I was really close with her daughter. Like the first time I ever like went out to a party, I was like with her daughter.
Does her daughter did she have to do gymnastics too, or did they?
Yeah, but her like she didn't take it like seriously. She competed for a little bit and then like not really. Yeah, Arthur just like I think like he fed into like bringing out the worst in her.
How did you? I know that the story was that you had like a meltdown before practice when you quit gymnastics, but my understanding is that you didn't get a medical retirement, and I'm like what happened? Like, what is the story about like how you quit and that decision making process?
Yeah, I was having like multiple meltdowns, and
like if you were at Georgia, Suzanne would medically retired you. I'm just saying, you know, like if she would have found someone to take your place, medically retired you, and just like everyone would have kept happy, and everyone would have just like shut up about it. Like, but you like different schools are different, you know? Like,
yeah. And I think I got my medical, so I ended up like actually like paying for like 2 quarters of school and that's it. And then I got my medical retirement for my senior year.
You had to fight for it? Or like, how did that happen?
I actually dropped out of school and I took time away and I really didn't think I was going to graduate. I was just like in a bad place. And then when I decided to come back, I think that's when Val spoke to the athletic department, and she was like, "I believe in you. I really think you can graduate." Mm-hmm. And she knew that like paying for it would be hard for me, so then like it was like a delayed medical retirement.
Okay.
It was kind of like weird, but
I remember you gave a speech that was apparently amazing at either senior night or was it the banquet?
Yeah, it was the senior night, I think. Yeah. And I don't really like remember like exactly what I said, but I was just like really appreciative. I think I was getting more like clarity like about my life at that point. Mm-hmm. And I was just like really honest and just saying how I was in a really bad place. And I don't know. I mean, at UCLA, that was the first time I started like seeing like a therapist, and that was the first time that I had like told people that I had been like abusing laxatives for like 6 years. And it was, you know, it was the first time I kind of like felt like hopeful that people, whether in or out of the gym, like cared about me like outside of being a gymnast and like as a person. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my leave was pretty dramatic, and I like refused to step foot in the gym. Like I just couldn't.
I mean, it's understandable, you know, like what you had.
I just didn't have like the words to like say it, and that's the same way I quit Elite. I just like I asked my mom to like stop at the gas station so I could get like a Gatorade or something, and I got out of the car and I started running. Like I literally ran
So,
away.
Mattie, this is why you're destined to be an actress. Like, you could be on stage.
Dramatic. I can't do anything like on like a normal level. Like everything has to be extra.
Do you want to do theater? Like, I could see you being doing straight plays on theater. You could really get into it.
Maybe it's never too late,
Like
Dave.
Girl Interrupted or something. Like, I really.
That's the beauty of acting. You can still make it when you're like 90 years old. So
Yes,
maybe
I feel this for you in like such a way. So, like, what are your? I guess. Okay, I know that Arthur and Galena got sued. Did you and Michaela both sue them separately, or like what happened?
I honestly don't know about Michaela.
Okay.
Literally, I would tell you if I did. Yeah. I did separately.
And like, what was? Are you allowed to talk about it? Like, what was the impetus for that? Like, what? As you got clarity,
Yeah. It was more of the ranch was fighting, or Marta was fighting to say that I was my coach's responsibility when I was at the ranch and they're to blame for Larry. And then my coaches were fighting to say that I was Marta's responsibility and she's to blame for Larry. So that's why my lawyer was like, sue them both, because they're both saying the other thing.
Have you sued Marta yet? Like, have you?
Yeah, I mean, we tried to, but nothing happened to it because they're just escaping out of everything and they're just,
So my understanding is that like she's maybe in Romania and he maybe has dementia. Like, and she left him behind,
Oh, Bella has dementia?
Yeah.
Apparently. Yeah, that's convenient. I mean,
it is convenient. It seems possible. Like, no one knows for sure, right? Like, also the fact that like Marta would leave her husband with dementia, like in another country, says a lot about her as a person too. So, like, I mean, like this is not a normal situation, Mattie. Okay, like
none of this is normal. None of this is normal.
Like my grandmother had dementia. She had Alzheimer's. It was very traumatic for the family. Like, and the fact
you just like up and like throw deuces and say bye.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what happened. So they were both fighting to say that I was each other's responsibility. So they were like, let's sue them both. I don't know if it's because the Crowley's lawyers are way better, or because through the evidence, like the courts actually found that I really was my coach's responsibility more than Marta's. But in the end, they were able to prove in some way that like they were basically the adults in charge that were in charge to keep me safe at the ranch, and they failed to do their job.
And did you go into a courtroom and like testify and talk about like to them in front of them?
No, there were depositions done. So I sat during Arthur and Galena's depositions, and I didn't like say anything, but I like sat there and took notes of what they were saying.
Did you stare at them?
True or not? What?
Did you like stare at them when they were speaking?
Yeah. Oh my God. So I was actually the first time I had seen them since I left AOGC, and this was like years later. And
so like they don't come to support you in college. Like they are not supporting.
No. They hated everything about college gymnastics. They said only like fat cows did college gymnastics and only failures did college gymnastics, and all the stuff you'd expect them to say. That was the only time I saw them was at the deposition, and I remember like panicking a lot the night before I saw Arthur, and like really panicking, and then I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, like so much has changed, and it's so sad that I was like scared of this guy. And I don't want to like be mean, but they put me through a lot, and then they came off like pathetic, and it was actually a nice closure to see them older, because I feel like if I hadn't seen them in those depositions, I still would have built them up to be these scary monsters that I had to run away from when I was a teenager.
Now, did they try to like make eye contact with you, say hello? Like what? So you're suing your coaches who you spent like every waking day of your life with. Like they stretched you like all over, right? Like you know each other very well. So like you see them in court. Like what is that interaction like?
There was no eye contact, no hello, no nothing. There were probably advice from their lawyers not to say anything. But Arthur did say that there was no alcohol at the ranch, and
really?
And
photos of like them drinking at the ranch that like that. I mean, not them specifically, but people,
Yeah, and Galena saying that I was always their favorite gymnast, and like they never did anything wrong.
Who was their favorite? Like who?
Who?
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe I was at the beginning, but definitely Michaela was for sure. Yeah.
And were you friendly with Michaela, or was that?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
all friendly with each other. And I do think, like, looking back, Michaela did, like, look up to me a little bit because I was a little older and had been through a little bit more. But that was hard for me, too, to be with them from, 7 years old. And then Michaela comes in, I think, when I was, like, maybe 17 or 18. And she can do this amazing vault, which is out of this world. But then it's just like, oh, you're the golden child.
How
And
good technicians are they? Because her other events were not up to
well,
vault.
she came into our gym already knowing how to do that 2.5 with that exact
Yeah.
tech.
Yeah.
They didn't teach her that.
No. But her other events, like, they didn't really improve her bars and beam that much. Like, she was skating by. And
Right.
floor, it looked like she got through by will. Like, I don't.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, when it came to Michaela, I don't think they did much. She came in with the vault of an angel, and they didn't really do anything
And are the
else. Yeah.
Shapiros, like, okay with Galena and Arthur? I mean, like, do they talk to, like, what?
I
Howie
have
was
no,
at left, right? So, yeah.
no idea. I don't keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're on like terrible terms. I just
Yeah.
don't keep in touch with
Moved
them.
on, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious where you testified against Larry Nassar. I don't know if it's before or after, but you were, one of the most powerful statements. And I'm wondering, like, the fact that you went there, like, when you think back, like, is that, like, did that help you move forward? Is that, like, a victory in your life to face him when you're seeing and to get up there? Like, first of all, I can only imagine, like, the weeks before knowing that's going to happen is, like, horrible, right? Like,
Well, thank goodness I actually didn't know I was going to do it until like 2 days before because my lawyer asked if I wanted to, and I said no, and that was that. So that was over. So I think it was better that way because if I had weeks looking up, like, up to it, then I would be freaking out. But I decided like 2 days before and then wrote my statement the night before. Like, I didn't really sleep. I just wrote it. And it was that, I think that was even more therapeutic than saying it because it was just like kind of like writing in a journal and just like getting it all out.
you went in, like, and it
And
was,
I went in guns a-blazing.
yeah. And it was amazing, do you,
I know it was the first time I was proud of myself for something for a long time, and it's still I don't maybe it's a ex-athlete thing, but I'm still trying to find my identity, like not as a gymnast or as a former gymnast, but yeah, I was before that. I think the only times I'd really been proud of myself was for competition related things. And I was really happy that I did it, and I just I felt powerful for the first time in a while.
I mean, the
I
amount
just
of
felt
courage. Did you know, I guess, the world was watching? I mean, did you feel that, or was it like a
no, because it
blur?
was a small courtroom,
Okay.
and everything happened so fast. Like we flew in and we got into Michigan at like 10 p.m. the night before, and then I testified at like 10 a.m. the next day, and then it was over, and it was in a little courtroom in Michigan. So it did not feel like I was on like this like world stage or anything.
I
It all
remember the
happened
day
so
that
fast.
the day that she read his letter and that Judge Aquilina. I just remember, like, at work, like, it was like everyone was on their phones, like, wanting to watch this, like what was going to by the end. And it was, yeah. I guess as you kind of move forward and you look back, like, what is your view of the sport? Like, do you like gymnastics itself? Do you think that it's like this pursuit of the Olympics that makes everyone go crazy? Like, kind of what is your perspective on it?
Um, I think it's impressive
Mm-hmm.
what gymnasts do. I think it's like the hardest sport out there. Um,
Do you physically
I,
find enjoyment from flipping and performing and?
I don't find enjoyment watching anymore. Um, but I still find enjoyment like myself sometimes, like holding handstands and stuff and like walking on my hand and like little things. Um,
Do you
I
like do
wish it was
yoga
different.
and, like, have
I
that kind
don't.
of?
It's funny. I don't really like yoga because it's like a little like too similar to like gymnastics stretching.
So like, what do you do? Do you like to dance? Because like you were
I
always
love to dance. I
okay.
love dance classes, and I was doing Krav Maga for a while because I just like really needed to just like punch the shit out of some things.
I saw that video
And
of you punching.
I,
Okay, yeah.
um, but as far as gymnastics, I wish a lot of things were different. Like I just wish it was more like football or basketball, where like you could make a living out of it and you didn't have to, like give up your college status. But then again, we peak at different ages, so I just wish things were different. I wish there weren't as many creepy people involved.
Did you ever think of
And
doing like Cirque du Soleil because you're such a performer, or is that too similar to gymnastics that it would be?
no, because when I was done, like I was done like using like my body as like my for like a living.
Okay.
I was just too like physically done. I was done with the like all the physically demanding stuff. Um, my view of gymnastics is really confusing and it's still changing.
Mhm.
Like before, I couldn't really watch anything at all. Now I'll watch like Simone and I'm able to appreciate someone like her. But yeah, I just don't love it. I just
Yeah.
don't. And I don't want my kids to do it if I have kids. And now I'm at the point where I look back and I watch what I did and it's just like, how and also like why?
So the other day, Maggie Heaney was suspended for 8 years. Which
I don't know who Maggie Heaney is.
okay, that's fine. She coached Lori Hernandez. And maybe you don't know who Lori is. She was a gymnast.
I know who Lori is because
Okay.
people have said that they remind her of me a
She
little
has
bit.
spunk, like but she was, so far what we know, what's public is, like verbal, emotional abuse, what she was suspended for. And I'm wondering what your opinion on coaches is. My thing is that, like, do I think that someone who abuses people deserves to get punished? Like, absolutely. You know, but are we going to punish all of them? Like, are we going to go like one by one with the, and I mean, like, because they should, like, I mean, the whole national staff, I could come up with a list of people that you could suspend. I guess like what your opinion of what should happen is.
I mean, ideally, in like a perfect world, I would say like USA Gymnastics like starts from scratch and we stop worrying about whether or not we're gonna like win the Olympics and be the best country and just like recalibrate the sport.
Yeah.
And actually, if gymnastics were like strictly like recreational and like there was no like national team, I think that would be even better.
Yeah.
Because it's fun and it's cool and people like flipping.
Yeah.
And you can still do things like Cirque du Soleil and or stunt work. Like a lot of like gymnasts go into stunt work. At least a lot of ones from UCLA, maybe because it's like in LA. You can make a living out of it. You don't need to torture yourself and try to be one of the six that make the Olympics every 4 years when it's 0.0001% out of all the thousands of gymnasts. So
And not many
yeah,
come out winners. Like people have a lot of trauma from. Yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting. My
People,
first blog was called The Olympic Effect.
they are. They're not even like household names, and there are gymnasts that will have lifelong trauma. So yeah, punish them all. I don't care.
Yeah. I guess, how does your relationship with your family mend? Or work in progress, or kind of family therapy? Or
Work
how
in
did.
progress. A lot of progress has been made, and it's tough. I think my parents are really, really sorry, and they feel a lot of guilt that I don't want them to feel. I don't blame them for my abuse from Larry at all. I do feel hurt the fact that my mom actually worked like reception at AOGC and didn't step in when she needed to step in because she thought her daughter could be a star. And I do feel sad that my dad tried to rationalize with Arthur a few times and it never got anywhere and it ended up in a yelling match and then it ended up with him being like, I can't step foot in that gym anymore. So him feeling like he couldn't do it, yet it was okay for his daughter to. Those are things that are going to take some time for me to heal from with my parents, but we're able to talk about it and I love them so much. And it's hard. Like, they had a child prodigy. And what do you do when you have a kid that's like really good with something? How do you find the balance of pushing them to be the best, but also keeping them safe as a kid? I
And
don't
there's
think there's
no,
any.
like, it's not state funded, and state funded brings a whole other list. You know, like I was about to say, my first blog was called The Olympic Effect, and basically my theory was is that like we all love these activities, but it brings out like dark sides of human nature that are like fascinating and horrible, right? But also like riveting, right? In many different ways, and they impact cultural, mental health, and like physical, some of all of this stuff, and maybe it's like in the workforce we don't see it in the same way. You know, like in corporate America there are issues in this, but like this is like very specific. But like this is beautiful, where like corporate America is kind of not so beautiful and boring.
This is cool, and you're working with kids who
Yeah.
like, just like listen. They just
Yes.
listen. And like I said, there's no handbook for it. Like there's no one out there to be like, okay, just do this, 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 and they'll be happy and healthy and successful. There's nothing.
So you and your healing, like where are you at? Like you testified against Larry. I saw you traveling to Japan, was it? Or
Oh yeah, that was just like with friends, like just like for a good time.
okay. You found like a career, like you're doing voiceover and like dental technician stuff. Like what are you I guess where are you? You know, do you feel more of a sense of identity? Like what is your
No, I feel I'm still finding myself, and maybe I always will, but like I'm enjoying it as I am. Like I'm sure feel like I'm the kind of person where like as a really young kid, gymnastics was like my thing, and now I feel like I'm always gonna be like trying like different things.
do you do writing? Because I feel like you're a good writer based on your statement.
No, I don't write, but I was thinking of taking a creative writing class while I was in quarantine.
I think
Just
you
like
should do
something.
it. I think that would be a good
If you
option for
say
you.
so, Dave, I'll do it.
Yes.
um,
Yeah, like what do you keep in touch with
and
Miss Val? Like what is that relationship like?
yeah, we like we'll like text here and there and just be like, hey, sending love, how are you? We don't like meet up a lot and stuff, but like we're good.
Mm.
As far as like other gymnasts, I keep in touch with Allie Raisman a good amount. Like there's a lot of love there. I keep in touch with Michaela here and there. But like I said, I was so just against everything gymnastics, and now I'm like slowly but surely like letting it back in because I really do appreciate what the girls do and what I did and how hard it is. Yeah, there's just like a lot of like wishing that it was different, but yeah, I mean, I'm still finding myself, but I'm like good. I feel solid. I'm okay. Yeah.
I think so many people are going to be glad to hear that. Thank you so much for coming on. This was so, giving of you to be so open. So thank you so
Oh
much.
yeah, of course. It's my pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.